I'm here with Paulo.
How you doing?
He's kind of helping me with this Finding Your Voice project, which we've decided to focus on more of like finding your voice through music and emphasizing the personal and creative expression in music. I kind of wanted to ask uh, what inspired you in terms of the creative process of music?
To start making music?
Yeah.
Listening to music. I listened to a lot of MTV and whatever was on the radio back then in Brazil.
Yeah.
Some national music, but also stuff from Europe or the US that we were consuming back in like late 90s, early
Mm-hmm.
2000s. And just starting using programs and seeing what happens with it.
Yeah. Would you say that the way you've kind of looked at music has changed since you've come to the US, or do you still have a lot of that creativity in terms of where you came from?
Yeah, it's kind of like a ever evolving learning process that you absorb other influences and that affects the things you already have accumulated as processes of being creative or
Mm-hmm.
influences, um, and just ride a wave. Of course, you want to have kind of encapsulate how you want to be perceived, have your sound or something like that,
Yeah.
but you're always changing, kind
Yeah.
of like always learning new things and getting
Constantly
new
evolving.
influences. Yeah.
Yeah. Any like particular artists or performers that have inspired you in
Well,
terms?
yeah, there are, I mean, a lot of artists, but for my, let's say, my latest journey, that because here in Nashville, I started getting more traction with house music, and then I found
Mm-hmm.
bass music, and the one of the first artists that I heard, like dubstep and all that stuff, was Skrillex. Uh, that was back in, I'm gonna say, 2012 or something like that.
Yeah.
It was just like very impactful. I'm like, whoa, this sounds fresh. Like,
Maybe let's do listening to your music
hmm
here and like kind of describe your creative process in terms of writing music
hmm
and then dive into one of your most recent projects.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to hear the one I'm working on, or you want to hear like stuff I have on Spotify?
The one you're working on would be great.
Cool. Um, so I use FL Studio. Most people use Ableton, but
Yeah.
it's not the car is the driver. But this I use Splice a lot to for samples, and
Mm-hmm.
even though on Splice you accumulate samples, I don't like to repeat the same samples that I already used.
Yeah.
But it's just my way of doing it. It's
Yeah.
just I like to keep it fun. Most times you make a loop and then you start breaking it down into the arrangement, but it's also fun to start from the top, make that very first part exactly how you want it, and then progressively evolve with it. It depends on who you're working with or
Yeah.
what's the idea. But this one, pretty sure I had a loop, and then broke it down into like our introduction, middle part, break, like second drop.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have two vocals. One I got on Splice, and another one I recorded with a local singer songwriter, and it's house music. Um,
Yeah.
I can play if you want.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm gonna play from the second drop. It's just fun stuff. But every track is a different experience. Like,
Yeah.
lately, I've been. Do you need more?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, that's fine.
But lately I've been putting out a track on SoundCloud Public every
Mm-hmm.
week, which it's fun because it keeps me disciplined to like, hey, I need to get this sounding good, and I
Mm-hmm.
need to finish the arrangement and mixing and mastering and all the stuff they have to do. So you keep yourself on check.
Yeah.
It's just kind of part of lately how I've been doing it.
Do you find that sometimes the creative process of your music obviously changes based on kind of the people you're working with,
For sure.
or doing
There,
collabs and stuff?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I use a DAW, a digital audio workstation that a lot of not a lot of people use. I mean, a lot of people use it, but Ableton is the standard, and
Yeah.
most people use that.
Yeah.
That gets in the way of collaborating, but you can also send stems. But when people come here, I usually am driving.
Mm-hmm.
It depends who you're collaborating with. There are people that are really easygoing and they just throw ideas to you and let you drive. But some people kind of get anxious that like they're not adding in,
Yeah.
and they're like, I want to do something. They're familiar with the other software,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have they're not familiar with this
Yeah.
environment, this interface, so they don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
So it's just easier to just let me drive, and I'll listen, and if you have like, hey, let's do a rise here and put a hi hat there, and I'm just like, yeah, let's do it. Like,
Yeah.
but it always varies. It's always going to depend on who you're dealing with and
Yeah.
the egos and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever found that people will like reach out and kind of ask you questions in terms of getting into music just based on hearing some of your stuff, or like in person?
You're talking about like DJs or they just
Yeah, like DJs, music creatives, or just people who are passionate about the music industry.
yeah. I mean, when I had Infrasonic, which was an event project that I had a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I was giving platform for DJs to, try like have open decks and hey, bring your flash drive and test it out.
Yeah.
Um, so that gave me an opportunity to get a lot of people introduced to the dance floor and like get their first gig and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was very rewarding, to have that platform to like, hey,
Kind of make that connection.
make like you want to start? Here it is. Like,
Yeah.
um,
And I know you talked about like certain projects in terms of what I wanted to listen to or anything like that, but like obviously you have the projects. Kind of what is the breakdown of that? Like, are you using those projects to communicate certain things, or like is it separate
well,
genres of music?
I mean, yeah. I have one project called Canwack, which is my psychedelic trance
Mm-hmm.
project, and I have that's like the core of most what I did in my, let's say, the extent of when I started making music to now.
Mm-hmm.
I have like 13 albums with that, but I don't really put time into it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I started working with house music a lot, especially here in Nashville, and then I found bass music and started consuming it too.
Yeah.
But the house heads, they're like, oh, we don't like
The
that.
forever
Yeah,
genre of people battling in EDM industry in
yeah,
terms of what
it's
music is the
silly.
best.
I mean, to
I
each
love
their
all
own.
music,
Yeah,
but
like everybody like what they like.
yeah.
Um, but then I was okay, so I'm gonna start another project so I can express that and just use it as a blank canvas to like, hey, like I'll go off on this and preserve that project,
Yeah.
keep it on the floor, and you know. But it's been fun to work with Alien Native, which is the newest project.
Yeah.
Like it gives you that freedom to just be experimental, and also you're preserving the other brand and keeping it on track to whatever direction you were taking it.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
can always go back to a different project if you want to.
I mean,
Yeah.
you don't even have to stop one to start the other. It's more
Yeah.
like at least from my experience, you put energy into things that you're feeling inspired by it at the moment. And if it's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I'm feeling more housey, and then you go and put it on this project, oh, this more bass or drum
Yeah.
bass, we're putting there. But it also depends on the demand. Like lately, I've been getting gigs that are more for Alien Native than for
Hmm.
Paulo Ventura, and so I just go with the flow and whatever you know gets you the most opportunities and good feedback.
Yeah.
You put more time and energy into it.
Yeah. And the music industry is constantly evolving, anyways,
Yep.
in terms of the music that people enjoy. I feel like Nashville in general lately has gotten to be a little bit more. I don't know. There's a lot of people moving from Florida and from
Mm-hmm.
California who like different genres of
Yep.
music, and so
There are gonna be different demands, and you know,
yeah,
like people are gonna want to listen to different things, and
yeah,
like, hey, do we have hardstyle? Do we have drum and bass? Do we have trance? And there's a
yeah,
lot of stuff that currently we don't really cater to,
mm-hmm.
but I can see it with what you
Yeah,
said. People moving in, they're gonna start demanding other things,
yeah.
and there's gonna be more opportunities to
I feel like
be more.
especially with hardstyle, but that's like really popular in California.
Yeah,
Like they have the whole hardstyle festival. So,
nice. Yeah, in
but
Australia, in Europe, I know it's really big, and
yeah,
here we don't really have that. And psytrance, we don't really have much that here, at least
yeah.
in Nashville. I know in California they have more in Asheville too, but in
But
general, in the U.S., it's not a big scene. Like,
it's cool now that I feel like Nashville is becoming more of a melting pot
yeah,
that
I love it.
we'll see a lot more of that. Um,
Yeah, I'm excited for our future, especially because we're the music city.
yeah, it's always been the music city, but it's always been what kind of music, you know? I know Nashville is famous for like blues music back in the past,
Hmm.
um, but it's mostly country. It's kind of interesting to see that country tie into EDM music a little bit. I feel like there's definitely been some artists that focus on that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, there are some people that actually know that they started making like country house,
Yeah.
and people like it.
If it
Like,
draws the listeners, you know.
right?
And
Yeah.
if it's cool, that way you can kind of bridge a gap between two entirely different what was seen as two entirely different music
Hmm.
genres. And that's just music in general. I feel like over the past decade or so has become a lot more of a tie-in between different genres. Like you'll see a lot more artists. I think there's a really famous artist here in Nashville who does country rap,
Oh
and
yeah,
she's super talented. And that's always interesting to see.
Jelly
Like there's
Roll
a
is kind of like.
Jelly Roll is kind of the same, yeah. But I don't know. People hate about Beyonce, but she did kind of, draw a tie between a lot of country and uh, pop
Yeah,
music.
R&B and
So
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, R&B. But
Um, yeah. At the end of the day, it's all music, and as much as there are gonna be genres or styles and tastes
mm-hmm.
for this or that, there are always gonna be creative outlets that could see a link between two styles, or
Yeah,
not even necessarily two. It could be a combination of a bunch of influences, right?
yeah,
Just create a new sound. Is it similar to what I was telling you about the experience of where I get inspiration from to be creative?
mm,
Music is always like is always a remix. Like you like, oh, you listen to this,
yeah.
and what they heard to something else. They influenced them, and it's always being flipped.
Trickle
Yeah,
down.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun stuff.
always kind of bothers me. People are like, "Oh, I've heard that before in this song," and I'm like, "There's millions and millions of songs out there. There's
Yeah,
always gonna be similarities and
yeah,
only so much di- separation that you can make from something that already exists." But
yeah. I
um,
mean, you can only make something from something that already exists.
yeah,
Like, at least when it comes to like all the things that we invented, we observe nature and like, oh,
mm-hmm.
like that looks like this, and that, like
Yeah,
all the designs and everything.
yeah.
It's observation.
But what do you hope listeners take away from your musical performances and musical projects?
Um, from the performances, I want them to feel embraced and a part of. I want to interact with them not only present the music and
Mm-hmm.
provide the vibes or whatever, but also I noticed that people really value when you know, like look at someone in the eyes and like, I see you, like, let's go. You know, like it make their
Yeah.
night. It makes their night sometimes, and it makes our night too more special when there is that connection, right?
Yeah.
Um, and sorry, what was the other question?
Oh, just like from your musical projects, what do you hope people take away from it?
Oh yeah,
You know?
and from the music itself, I've been wanting to put together a set, or not only one set, but something that is a journey that is not just shiny lights and
Yeah.
cool visuals and good sounding music. I want a narrative or something that gives the audience that feeling when you leave the
Mm-hmm.
movie theater. There's like you're kind of like, oh my god, remember that part, or like things that you're gonna take home, and
Yeah.
there's not just like good music or whatever. Like
I always find your projects very interesting when you're listening to them. It feels like from the beginning to the end, like it's kind of telling a story because you'll start off like a little bit more soft toned and then kind of weave different things in there. So
yeah, there are many ways to approach a narrative or a flow of experience, especially with dance floor music, because you might want to start soft and build up energy, but you might also want to like send it from the beginning, kind of exhaust the crowd, and play some mellow stuff in the middle that they're gonna be not wanting to move as much as they want to listen.
yeah,
You know, it's like you're always testing things out, see what happens.
yeah. Music is constantly a throw things out there and kind of see
Yeah.
how it goes.